to the Nerdthusiast Gaming Podcast, where today we're going to be discussing game development. We actually have a game developer with us for the first time ever on the show. So we're excited to talk to him about that. He's also our artist, and I will introduce him in just a moment. With me, as always, is my good friend Wes. Wes, how you doing, man?
What's going on, my friend? I'm doing good today.
I'm doing well also. Wes, where can people find you if they want to keep up with you?
You can find me on Instagram at Grendel5XBX. And if you're ever in the Atlantic City area, you can catch me at Level Up Entertainment in the Hamilton Mall, Mays Landing, New Jersey.
Awesome. I'm Matt. You guys can follow me at FromNJ to CA over on Twitter. The 2 is the number 2. Now for our guests, Bernardo del Castillo. He's our artist, right? So you do almost, I would say, 95% of the art and graphics for Nerdthusiast, right?
I mean, I have in some time it's been, but yeah, I think I haven't seen every single piece of art that you guys use, but I think I kind of had a hand.
It's almost entirely yours.
Yeah.
So we don't really have any artists, in house, but this is the closest thing. I mean, he's in our Discord. We consider him part of our team, but we do, call upon him when we need some art for sure, and he's always there to help us out, which we really appreciate. But Bernardo, go ahead and introduce yourself. Why don't you talk about what it is you do with game development, and as well as you being an artist?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm originally by trade graphic designer, so that's why I kind of have a bit of a way around graphics, I guess. I worked as a motion graphics designer for years, but then I just really wanted to be a game developer. I never really thought it was an option, but after a while, just, I don't know, searching for my destiny and stuff, I ended up like studying game programming directly after being kind of a programmer, like a geek nerd all my life. I was like, no, I need to do this. And I went to Australia, actually, and I studied game programming for 3 years there, mostly because it was affordable. Because the States was, not possible. And yeah, I ended up kind of starting a company with some friends from Australia. And that kind of worked for a bit. We had a few games in mobile and a few games in PlayStation, but after a while, like, it was pretty much a side job for all of us, and only I really had the push to keep going, I suppose. But I guess it also happened that I had the option to keep going, and yeah, that's it. Like, I've been making games ever since. It's been like 12 years now. I do some freelance stuff. I do a lot of stuff for my own IP, my own ideas. I help out people who need some art often, or illustration, but honestly, like, it's logos, illustration. I'm pretty flexible when it comes to that. I try to keep myself nimble. But yeah, mostly focused on game development and my own IP, I suppose.
Cool. Well, Bernardo, you mentioned that you
sorry.
do you've done games in the past, and you mentioned PlayStation. Can you mention some of the PlayStation titles you've worked on?
Yeah, I probably should have mentioned that my company's called Raptus Games. And yeah, we had the first thing that we did, remember, was an on-rails shooter for mobile. But after that, we did a kind of like remember the Donkey Kong barrel sections in the original Donkey Kong?
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of like that idea, and we took it, like, we originally made it for the phone as well, but we expanded it and made it into a PlayStation game that had kind of like more of an adventure mode and everything. So that was the first game that we did for PlayStation, and I did a port for Vita, and then for the PS4 at the time. And well, it was kind of, the idea was to learn how the process was to just submit something into PlayStation, and that was a lot, because we were self-publishing at the time. Well, I still am, but it was a very big learning curve to get that done.
What was the name of the title?
The game in the PlayStation Store is still available. It's called Super Blast Deluxe. So yeah, originally it was Tap and Blast, but the Super Blast Deluxe version is the one that's on PlayStation, and it's yeah, I think that it did pretty well at the time for our expectations. It was just kind of like an experiment. So yeah, pretty happy with it. But now I'm working. I've been working for a bit over, I think, 8 years on this new game that I've got coming, and yeah, I'm really hoping this one hits harder. This is more ambitious and a lot more. I don't know. I'm a lot happier with it as well.
Awesome, man. Well, we're going to talk more about that game shortly, but let's head back to the beginning. What got you into video games in the first place? And then what's your favorite game, platform, or console of choice?
Well, actually, it's a kind of maybe not exciting story, maybe exciting story. I my parents were absolutely against video games. They thought they rotted the mind in some ways. Not really, but like I honestly I didn't have like I didn't have TV hours at like when I was younger. I could only watch TVs on the weekend. I didn't have access to a console. I didn't have access to much of a computer anyway, and so it was always very titillating to me, like very exciting. Ooh, like I remember like seeing the first games, like even like Solitaire. I remember just seeing when Solitaire was completed back in the day and seeing like the bouncing
The
cards out
cards,
of
bro.
the,
Yeah.
and it was like, oh my god, this is so cool. And at some point, I remember my uncle used to play Wolfenstein, and that was like, wow, Wolfenstein 3D, like the original one. I was like, oh god, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
But I
The
never really
OG
thought of
first
it
person
that
shooter.
way. Yeah, I never really thought of it as an option, as I said. So yeah, later on, I was mostly gravitating towards art, and then digital art, and then there was a few options in which I was like learning to program, but like it was hard to imagine even how those two things connected when you're looking at programming, like dry programming and like video games. It's just like it's two worlds, and it still is. Like I yeah, there still is a very big gap like between like the actual hard programming in my mind, like the engine programming and the video game programming, which is it's not quite like building websites, but it's a lot more of like, oh, I got like these blocks and I'm putting them into functions that someone else kind of made. I don't program my own engine. I had some classes on like OpenGL and DirectX, which is like the basics of a lot of game programming in PC. But I never really, well, in everything really, but I never went too far into it. It's just not that exciting for me. There's a lot of people that love it, but not. Yeah, it wasn't really my direction. I was always more interested in the design side, like in the experience design part of it. I always wanted to either do something interactive, something more media focused. I wanted to make movies for a bit, and it felt like, oh, like this is the thing that has all the things. This is video games kind of do all those other things, allow all of these experiences. Uh, yeah, and so it was obvious. I just needed to do it, and I still need to do it in a way.
Oh yeah.
um, yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Hmm.
So, what about your favorite like system or game? Like, do you have a favorite game of all time? And then like, what's your preferred system of choice?
Oh, right, systems. I again because I didn't really have a system. I remember my first system was a second-hand Genesis, which I had like
Nice.
three games for, and I rented the rest. I remember I had Sonic 2. I had a
That's a
very
good Sonic game.
Hmm.
it's there is no such thing, but sure. Uh,
Oh,
Oh,
I have opinions about Sonic. We can talk about it later. But I had a bootleg like volleyball game, and I had a game that was called Combat Cars. And then yeah, I don't know. I remember renting a lot of bad games at the time. A lot of games that I couldn't finish. I was very bad at it. Uh, and that was and at that time, I think that people were getting their Nintendo 64s. So I was
Okay.
very behind in what games could
Mm.
be. Um, as for my favorite game, that came much later. Like when I could buy myself a Dreamcast. That's that's when I started actually gaming. But I didn't really see the potential of games until much later. I think I remember really loving Zelda's Majora's Mask. Not even Ocarina of Time. I just thought that Majora's Mask was so freaking weird and scary.
It was
And
weird. I
like I,
just couldn't stand the time, man. That whole controlling the time, it pissed me off. I was like, "You guys are."
but but even that was kind of fascinating because it was not a game that was, it was not just skill, it was not just like fun, it was pressure, it was like dread, and I really loved that
That's not what I
feeling.
want out of Zelda, though. The Zelda is supposed to be go on an adventure, figure, go and explore, right? And then I
I
felt
don't
like you're
I
making me
have
try to run
no
the. I mean, I did, and I was like, "What are you guys doing? This is not. This is like the
Uh,
antithesis of what Zelda is
I'm
supposed to
sure
be."
I'm sure I had no expectations of what Zelda was. Like I hadn't really played. I played a bit of Ocarina before Majora's. Didn't have either of them. It was at a friend's house, and Ocarina was too big. It was too, like, just too much time into it, and this one was more bite sized and I could understand it. It had more defined rules. And later on, I remember in the PlayStation 2, it was Ico and Shadow of the Colossus.
two
And
great games. Great
yeah,
games.
very, those were my favorites at the time. And I think that now my favorite game is probably Journey, that game company's Journey. It was PS3 exclusive at the time.
It's one of
And
the
it
best games of all
really,
time.
I mean, that was for me. And it still is for me. Like, I think that it's, as far as games go, I have a philosophy of like just remove everything that's unnecessary. Like if you can, if it's not improving the experience that you're having, that you're intending the player to have, just cut it out. And to me, that's a game that just removed everything that wasn't necessary. It's perfect. It's the
It is.
only perfect game that I can think of.
Hmm.
And yeah, but like, of course, if you want to go into more, like, I still enjoy numbers going up and the fun things about games, but that really, that, like, in my more intellectual, I don't know, game creator brain, that really hits. Yeah, it's an achievement.
So we already kind of mentioned when you started creating games. I obviously we didn't get into this too deeply. I mean, you mentioned it briefly, but when exactly did you start doing this solo? Because you mentioned you were with a team of people in Australia. So when did this
Yeah,
turn into like you doing stuff solo?
well, it never was intentionally doing stuff solo, really. What happened is that I was working with a team in Australia, and my partner got offered a job kind of in the school where we studied as a teacher, and also I think a thing, like a small temp thing at EA. So he was not really going to be able to keep working on it, and so it was like the option of like, do we continue? And I said I fully understood, but I immediately tried hiring people. And the problem with that is that it's an indie thing, and I didn't have a lot of money to just pay someone.
Right.
And I tried getting like younger people, I suppose, or less experienced people, just to, still paid, not not a bad boss, right? uh but it was very difficult to really get them into a game that was halfway in development. And also just like the idea, I find that a lot of younger people have an expectation of, this is going to be my job, this is what I come here to do. And when you're in the position that I am, which is like, hey, I need to make some sound effects, and I'm like, I'm not a sound guy. I mean, I kind of am now, right? But like, that's the thing, I kind of am now. Like, if I need
Okay.
animations, I don't have an animator. If I have a problem programming, like, I'm not gonna have, I mean, I
Mm.
can ask the internet, but like I had a lot of issues with people where like, oh, but that's not the thing I'm here to do. That I never wanted to do this. And I'm like, I get it. I
Oh
really
man.
do. But like there's
they're
no
not
one
like looking
else.
at the scale. Yeah, they're not looking at the scale of things. They're just being, kind of selfish. Honestly, they're just like, well, it's not my
No,
job.
but I understand it as well. Like when you are looking for a job, you're not expecting sometimes to have to do things that you're not qualified to. You feel bad often, and like also when it turns out bad, and we have to like redo it, or I have to tell you no, not going to be able to use that. It sucks as well because you weren't paid for this, you're not in your element, and you're being told that you did a poor job. So like it is demoralizing. I understand it. Like as someone who doesn't really have an option, like I get it. It sucks to be me sometimes, you know. And if I were being paid for this, I'd be like, maybe I'd go find my own thing, you know. I'd do my own thing if these are the conditions that I need to be like adhering to, like working under. So
Makes sense.
I get it. I feel like there needs to be a sense of ownership for this to work, really, and it's hard to give that to someone who's starting like halfway through a project that's not theirs. You know, like I tried, but again, I'm not that experienced as a boss either. So, but yeah, that's the thing. So one thing after another, I was like, you know what? Like I'm wasting time training people to get this job done. Let's just finish this job solo. Like this one, particularly
Mm.
this game, just let's do it. Let's complete it, and then we'll see. You know, and I am looking for people for the following game, and yeah, I mean, fingers crossed that there will be a following game. No, there will be. As I said, I can't. I must. I
That's awesome.
must make games, but yeah, no. Hopefully, I'll get more people in from the ground up, and it'll be better. You know, like that way. There's more division. There's more, yeah, sense of ownership, understanding of the product, and yeah, all of that.